The rich millionaire and the black beggar. Clearwater was the kind of town where every lawn was perfect. Every car gleamed under the sun, and the air smelled like fresh-cut grass and expensive cologne. But on this crisp morning, something jarring cut through the glossy calm like a jagged knife. A shadow in the middle of the manicured streets. Leticia. At 18, she stepped onto Clearwater's pristine sidewalks like a thief in another world. Her clothes were faded. Her shoes cracked and worn thin. Dark eyes, sharp and wary, flicked nervously over the fancy brick houses, the towering gates, the iron smiles of neighbors who couldn't believe their eyes. Who was this girl? The whispers started low, like a breeze, then swelled into a storm. A beggar, a stranger, who let her in? Her skin, richly brown against their pale neighborhood, became a canvas for fear and suspicion. But Leticia held her head high, clutching her tattered bag close as if it was her only shield against. People said the Thompson estate was haunted by silence, the sorrow of a little girl who hardly ever spoke. Isabella, the mysterious Isabella, pale and thin like a ghost drifting through velvet halls. And now, this girl, this outsider, was the one who would watch over her. Rumors exploded. Why would Arthur Thompson trust a black girl from nowhere with his precious daughter? The town buzzed like a hive full of venom. Some stares followed Leticia wherever she went. Kids sneered. Neighbors whispered behind Venetian blinds. Yet the mystery deepened. How had Leticia, so fragile seeming, broken through Isabella's walls? How did she coax tiny smiles from the locked-away girl? But shadows don't stay hidden for long. Arthur's unease grew sharper than any knife. His gaze lingered too long, caught between admiration and guilt, between the past he buried and a future he never dared imagine. And when those rumors twisted into ugly shapes, dark tales implying things no one dared say alow. The rich millionaire and the black beggar! A scandal, lurking just beneath those mansion walls, threatening to rip apart more than just fragile hearts. Then, the day the unexpected happened. The moment that forced Arthur and Leticia to face truths too painful to deny. But just when hope flickered, a new, cruel rumor struck. A blow so fierce it echoed through the— "You don't belong here," they jeered, those venomous little taunts curling around her like a snake. Her heart raced, but she pushed through. Today was different. Today was supposed to be about hope. Inside the mansion, she walked into Isabella's room, a sanctuary of stuffed animals and pastel colors. The girl sat in the corner, framed by sunlight streaming through the window. It was a rare moment. Isabella's lips twitched at the edges, hints of a smile breaking through. Leticia felt warmth bloom in her chest. "Let's play," Leticia urged, her voice soft. But Isabella's eyes darted away, masked with shadows. The silence wrapped tightly around them like an unwelcome friend. Then, bang! A sudden noise erupted from downstairs, shattering the moment. It was sharp and loud, followed by the unmistakable sound of raised voices. Leticia's heart sank. She moved to the door. Another angry confrontation? She opened it, peering down the elegant staircase. There they were, Arthur at the bottom, face twisted in rage. There stood a man, tall and intimidating, shouting, "You can't keep her! You're a fool for trusting this girl!" Leticia's breath quickened as she recognized the man, Marcus, Arthur's longtime business partner, a notorious bully with a penchant for trouble. Fear clawed at her throat. What's happening? But she couldn't stay hidden. She drifted down the stairs, her curiosity pushing her toward the chaos. The voices collided, sharp as glass. I don't care what you think. She's good for Isabella. Arthur's eyes burned, fixated on Marcus, a storm of emotions swirling in his chest. Good? You think a beggar can raise a child? This is a mistake you'll regret. Marcus's sneer twisted into a horrifying grin. You have no idea who she really is. That word hung in the air, heavy and toxic. Leticia froze, every hair on her neck standing. Who was she? A surge of adrenaline shot through her veins. The truth felt just out of reach, but it pulsed inside her, dark and tangled. Enough, Arthur snapped, but the ice in his voice cracked. Shadows swept over his face as he turned to Leticia. What does he mean? Her mind raced. The accusations, the doubts. It was as if the walls of the mansion were closing in. Without thinking, she took a step forward. Please, Arthur, But just as she spoke, a figure burst through the doors. An officer, breathless and furious. Arthur Thompson, we need to talk. The room fell silent, tension thick enough to slice. Everyone's gaze turned toward the officer, confusion and apprehension coiling like smoke. What is this? Arthur demanded, eyes narrowing. The officer took a breath, skin taut like a bowstring. We have reason to believe Leticia is connected to an ongoing investigation, a disappearance. Reality slammed into Leticia like a freight train. Labyrinthine thoughts spun in her mind, spiraling dangerously. The whispers erupted into a thunderstorm in her head. Was it true? Was she somehow tied to something sinister? Leticia? Arthur turned to her, shock painted across his features. You have to explain. Panic rose in her chest. Every doubt and murmur suddenly transformed into a roaring tsunami. All her dreams of belonging, all the tiny smiles she coaxed from Isabella, were they now shadowed by this unexpected truth? Leticia felt the ground shift beneath her. She had been fighting a silent battle against the world, but now the storm raged within her. Could she survive what was coming next? Was she really who she thought she was? Leticia's heart thundered, drowning out the officer's words. What do you mean, a disappearance? Panic flooded her, sharp and cold, like ice water tossed over her. She felt all eyes on her, sharp stares and whispered doubts that sliced through the air. Arthur stood frozen, a mix of fury and confusion and something else, something that flickered like fear in his eyes. He turned as if to shield her. He spat, his voice rising, but the officer stepped closer, determined. We received a tip. A girl matching her description was last seen near the Thompson estate. Gasps rippled through the room. The walls seemed to close in, shifting and warping like a latched coffin struggling against a secret. This girl, Leticia murmured, trying to keep her voice steady. But her mind raced. The lost girls, faces blurred by time and sorrow, stories forgotten. Was she tied to them? And you think she's a threat? Arthur's voice surged with protective anger. She's Isabella's caretaker. The officer shook his head, grim. These cases, they're complex. We're just trying to gather information. With every word, the room distorted into chaos. The whispers clawed at Leticia, relentless. You don't belong here! And what are you hiding? Spiraled in her mind. Spiraled. She needed to fight back, to prove she was more than what they believed. Leticia, Arthur said softly, stepping closer, his eyes searching. Tell me the truth. Are you? His voice trailed off, leaving a weighty silence between them. Then, like a jolt of electricity, a voice sliced through. It was Marcus, smirking, arms crossed, eyes glinting with malice. Ah, but you see, Arthur, the truth can be complicated. Leticia trembled, confused. Did he know something she didn't? What are you talking about? He grinned. You think Leticia is some harmless little girl? What if I told you that the girl who disappeared wasn't a random victim? What if she was related? The air thickened. Leticia felt bile rise in her throat. Related? She echoed, feeling her stomach twist. What could he mean? She glanced at Arthur, who stepped back, shock etched in his features as if he'd been struck. If you play with fire, you might get burned, Marcus continued, his voice dripping with malice. Leticia might be the one who takes Isabella from you. No, Leticia shouted, heart pounding. I would never! Suddenly the lights flickered. The whole room felt charged, as if something unnatural was brewing. A window shattered downstairs. The sound echoed like a gunshot, slicing through the tension in the room. Get down! Arthur yelled, racing towards Leticia. The moment felt surreal, each second stretching painfully thin. Was this a new threat? Had Marcus crossed a line? Then it came. A figure lunged through the doorway, a wild rush of energy. Leticia, you have to come with me! It was a girl, frenzied, eyes alive with fear. Who are you? Leticia gasped, bewildered. I don't have time to explain. It's about your past, your mother. The girl's words crashed into Leticia, sending cold dread coursing through her. My mother? Leticia's breath hitched. This was too much. Arthur turned to the girl, bewilderment flaring in his eyes. What do you know about Leticia? Everything, the girl said, her voice sharp as glass. And you need to listen if you ever want to know who she really is. As the urgency pulsed in the air, Leticia felt the ground collapse beneath her. Who was she really? What secrets were woven in her past? The truth loomed, dark and terrifying, ready to swallow her whole. And just when she thought she grasped her story, everything was shifting again. What had she stepped into? What did this mean for her future? The walls pulsed with unspoken danger, and in that moment, nothing felt certain anymore. Leticia's pulse raced as the girl standing before her spilled secrets like a broken dam. Your mother? Leticia's heart trembled at the mention. A shadow flitted across the room. Curious, puzzled eyes darted between them, the atmosphere thickening with uncertainty. Listen to me. The girl's voice surged, fierce and urgent. The room grew silent, a collective gasp echoing in the air. Leticia felt every heartbeat thump against her ribcage, as if her heart wanted to break free. What are you saying? Her voice cracked, trembling under the weight of fear. The girl stepped forward, urgency in her eyes. Please, you need to come with me. I can explain everything, but we have to move now. But before more could be said, the room erupted. The officer's radio crackled to life. A frantic voice piercing through the tension. Officer Matthews, we have a situation at the Thompson estate. All units, respond! Leticia's stomach twisted. What situation? Suddenly, the commotion broke into chaos. A loud crash resounded from the main hall, followed by shouts and the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. Panic ensued. "Get back!" Arthur shouted, grabbing Leticia's arm, pulling her close. The girl's face paled. "They're here! Go! Now!" But what could be worse than what was already happening? Just then, a figure burst into the room, cloaked and shadowy. A deep voice resonated. A man cloaked in mystery. "Step away, Leticia. It's time to come home." Everything froze. Leticia felt the air ignite with confusion. Terror swirled around them, catching each breath in a chokehold. "Home?" she whispered. Disbelief flooding her veins. "Who are you?" Arthur demanded, hardening into a protective stance. "I'm your father!" The man's eyes gleamed, filled with a wild intensity. "Leticia, you're in danger. You need to leave. They won't stop until they find you." He moved closer, desperation oozing from every word, and a cold dread clutched Leticia's heart. Her father? The idea felt unmoored, alien in her mind. No, that can't be true. As their stares locked, memories of a life she could barely grasp flickered at the edges of her consciousness. A warmth swelled in her chest, an echo of belonging, of longing. "But my mother is—" He choked on the word, a flicker of vulnerability traversing his face. "Is not who she seems. You have to trust me." Arthur interjected. "What have you done? You're just trying to lure her away." Rage surged in his voice, grounding Leticia as the chaos pulsed around them. Just then, a crackling noise erupted from the radio again. "All units, we need backup. There's been a break-in at the Thompson estate. It's getting dangerous." The room tensed, breaths hitching. Leticia's vision blurred. Everything felt like it was spiraling. Her father was here, claiming her. But what did that mean? In one breath, her identity shifted like sand beneath her feet. "The truth will change everything," he urged, desperation etching lines on his face. "But every moment counts." With the sounds of footsteps closing in, the weight of decisions pressed down like an iron shackle. Should she flee with a stranger, her father, or stay here in the mansion that felt like both prison and sanctuary? The walls reverberated with urgency, a storm brewing in the silence. What was true? What had been hidden? Suddenly, Leticia's world shattered, and she stood on the precipice of an unknown fate. "Leticia," Arthur pleaded softly, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Don't go." The room around her faded, tension clinging like smoke. Everything hung in the balance, a fragile thread, and as she took a step forward, the lines of her story blurred, leaving only uncertainty in its wake. Leticia's heart raced as she clung to Arthur's side, her mind reeling from the whirlwind of secrets and accusations filling the air. The urgency in the girl's voice echoed in her ears. "You have to trust me!" Yet trust felt so distant, like a leaf caught in a storm. "Leticia," Arthur said softly, his face taut with worry. But before she could respond, the cloaked figure stepped closer, his intensity growing more palpable. His eyes trained on her with an unsettling intensity. "You're not safe here." Shadows danced across the walls, a theater of chaos unfolding right in their midst. Just when it seemed things couldn't get more chaotic, the room pulsed with a crackling energy, forcing Leticia to take a step back. Then came a blaring siren, harsh and jarring, cutting like glass. "Leticia!" the mysterious girl cried, her voice rising in desperation. "They're here!" With those words, doors slammed open, and armed figures stormed in. Flashing badges, grim faces, eyes filled with intent. Everyone freeze! The air thickened with fear. Leticia's breath caught in her throat. Panic surged, wild and uncontainable. "Who are you?" Arthur shouted, pushing Leticia behind him, his every muscle tense, protective. But they didn't answer. Instead, they advanced, eyes sweeping the room, assessing. "Move aside, Thompson." One officer commanded, irritation lacing his voice. "This is about Leticia. What do you want with her?" Arthur demanded, his voice steady, but the pain behind it was palpable. The officer glanced back. "She's a witness to something much bigger than you realize." Witness? Confusion clouded Leticia's mind. Before she could comprehend, the dark figure's demeanor shifted, his gaze darting around. "You're just making it worse," he yelled, voice trembling with urgency. Then the girl stepped forward, defiance etched in her features. "Leticia is not just a witness. You don't understand. She's the key to everything." Suddenly, the lights flickered ominously, plunging them into brief darkness. Leticia felt a cold shiver racing down her spine. The sirens blared louder, echoing through the house, the chaos escalating with each beat. She could feel everyone's eyes, questioning, judging. "Get away from her!" Arthur shouted again, stepping protectively in front of Leticia as the officers moved closer. "This is ridiculous!" Then, the atmosphere shifted. The leading officer pulled off his sunglasses with a slow, deliberate move, his gaze locking onto Leticia, sending an icy shiver through her veins. "We know her mother," he said slowly, deliberately. "We know what she did." Leticia's breath hitched. What do you mean?" The officer took a step closer, cold determination radiating from him. "You have no idea what you're wrapped up in, do you? Your mother was involved in something dark, something we've been tracking for years. She left a trail, and you're the missing piece." "No!" Leticia shouted, voice breaking. "You're wrong! My mother, she wouldn't!" "But it's true," he pressed, eyes narrowing. "You have no idea who you are. You're the daughter of a criminal." The room spun. Leticia's world shattered. The walls felt like they were closing in. The whispers that had haunted her were now roaring, transforming into an unbearable cacophony. "Leticia!" Arthur exclaimed, his voice filled with concern, stepping closer as her world crumbled. "Look at me. You're not like her. You're different." But then, in that very moment of panic, something erupted from the shadows. Marcus lunged forward, his grin more vicious than ever. "Oh, this is rich," he sneered. "Looks like the beggar is really the princess. You should have never come here." Leticia's heart pounded, every nerve firing with fear. It felt like the ground beneath her fracturing. "Enough!" Arthur roared, voice cracking with ferocity. But the tension was unrelenting. The clock, ticking away at their sanity. "Leticia," Marcus taunted, his eyes alight with malice. "Why don't you tell them the truth about your mother? Maybe you'll all find out how deep this rabbit hole goes." Shock blasted through her chest. All eyes were on her, a fragile spark of hope collapsing under the weight of revelation. "You're not like everyone else!" the girl shouted, panic igniting. "You have to remember! You have to fight!" But as Leticia looked around, faces blurred, and the chaos roared, all she could think was, who was she really? Who was her mother? And what did Marcus mean? The truth loomed ahead, dark and potent, wrapping around her like a vice. Would it crush her or set her free? The world felt like it was unraveling, and in the middle of it all, she stood torn, teetering on the brink of a destiny she never asked for. Leticia's heart raced as she clung to Arthur's side, her mind reeling from the whirlwind of secrets and accusations filling the air. The urgency in the girl's voice echoed in her ears. "You have to trust me!" Yet trust felt so distant, like a leaf caught in a storm. "Leticia," Arthur said softly, his face taut with worry. But before she could respond, the cloaked figure stepped closer, his intensity growing more palpable, his eyes trained on her with an unsettling intensity. "You're not safe here. They want you, and time is running out." The tension was suffocating. Shadows danced across the walls, a theater of chaos unfolding right in their midst. Just when it seemed things couldn't get more chaotic, the room pulsed with a crackling energy, forcing Leticia to take a step back. Then came a blaring siren, harsh and jarring, cutting like glass. "Leticia!" the mysterious girl cried, her voice rising in desperation. "They're here!" With those words, doors slammed open, and armed figures stormed in. Flashing badges, grim faces, eyes filled with intent. "Everyone freeze!" The air thickened with fear. Leticia's breath caught in her throat. Panic surged, wild and uncontainable. "Who are you?" Arthur shouted, pushing Leticia behind him, his every muscle tense, protective. But they didn't answer. Instead, they advanced, eyes sweeping the room, assessing. "Move aside, Thompson," one officer commanded, irritation lacing his voice. "This is about Leticia." "What do you want with her?" Arthur demanded, his voice steady, but the pain behind it was palpable. The officer glanced back. "We know her mother," he said slowly, deliberately. "We know what she did." Leticia's breath hitched. What do you mean?" The officer took a step closer, cold determination radiating from him. "You have no idea what you're wrapped up in, do you? Your mother was involved in something dark, something we've been tracking for years. She left a trail, and you're the missing piece." "No!" Leticia shouted, voice breaking. "You're wrong! My mother, she wouldn't!" "But it's true," he pressed, eyes narrowing. "You have no idea who you are. You're the daughter of a criminal." The room spun. Leticia's world shattered. The walls felt like they were closing in. The whispers that had haunted her were now roaring, transforming into an unbearable cacophony. "Leticia!" Arthur exclaimed, his voice filled with concern, stepping closer as her world crumbled. "Look at me! You're not like her! You're different!" But then, in that very moment of panic, something erupted from the shadows. Marcus lunged forward, his grin more vicious than ever. "Oh, this is rich," he sneered. "Looks like the beggar is really the princess. You should have never come here." Leticia's heart pounded, every nerve firing with fear. It felt like the ground beneath her fracturing. "Enough!" Arthur roared, voice cracking with ferocity. But the tension was unrelenting, the clock ticking away at their sanity. "Leticia," Marcus taunted, his eyes alight with malice. "Why don't you tell them the truth about your mother? Maybe you'll all find out how deep this rabbit hole goes." Shock blasted through her chest. All eyes were on her, a fragile spark of hope collapsing under the weight of revelation. Suddenly, without warning, the lights in the mansion flickered ominously and went out, plunging them into darkness. Chaos erupted as shouts filled the air, confusion spreading like wildfire. Leticia felt herself jostled, pushed back. Then a gunshot rang out, sharp and clear, followed by a scream that echoed through the halls. Everything froze. Leticia's heart stopped. She felt time stretch, the world around her receding into a blur. "Get down!" Arthur shouted, throwing himself over Leticia just as another shot rang out. It felt like the earth had split, sending shockwaves through her. She gasped, the air thick with dread. In the confusion, a figure darted through the darkness, moving faster than anyone could track. "Leticia!" A voice broke through the chaos, desperate and pleading. It was her mother's voice. "Leticia, I'm here!" Her heart raced. She hadn't heard that voice since she was a child. "Mom?" The sound felt as raw and real as thunder. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing her mother standing in the doorway. She looked different, worn and weary, but undeniably her. The room gasped in unison, shock slapping them all like a frigid wind. "Mom!" Leticia cried, tears brimming in her eyes. But as she stepped forward, confusion creased her mother's brow. "Leticia, don't!" she shouted, just as Marcus lunged forward. A split moment, then chaos erupted again, and the world spun out of control. Leticia's mother turned in a panic, fear etching her features as she shouted, "You were never supposed to find out! Not like this!" The room burst into confusion, all eyes darting between them, the weight of the truth crushing down. Had everything she believed been a lie? Or was her mother really? And just as reality crumbled around her, the officer shouted, "Arrest her!" Leticia's world tipped, leaving her in a vortex of conflict and secrets. Everything she thought she knew shattered. What did this mean for her? What would happen next? Panic filled the air as the storm brewed, her hand trembling, poised at the edge of the unknown. Leticia's heart raced as she clung to Arthur's side, her mind reeling from the whirlwind of secrets and accusations filling the air. The urgency in the girl's voice echoed in her ears. "You have to trust me!" Yet trust felt so distant, like a leaf caught in a storm. "Leticia," Arthur said softly, his face taut with worry. But before she could respond, the cloaked figure stepped closer, his intensity growing more palpable, his eyes trained on her with an unsettling intensity. "You're not safe here! They want you, and time is running out!" The tension was suffocating. Shadows danced across the walls, a theater of chaos unfolding right in their midst. Just when it seemed things couldn't get more chaotic, the room pulsed with a crackling energy, forcing Leticia to take a step back. Then came a blaring siren, harsh and jarring, cutting like glass. "Leticia!" the mysterious girl cried, her voice rising in desperation. "They're here!" With those words, doors slammed open and... arm! Flashing badges, grim faces, eyes filled with intent. "Everyone freeze!" The air thickened with fear. Leticia's breath caught in her throat. Panic surged, wild and uncontainable. "Who are you?" Arthur shouted, pushing Leticia behind him, his every muscle tense, protective. But they didn't answer. Instead, they advanced, eyes sweeping the room, assessing. "Move aside, Thompson!" one officer commanded, irritation lacing his voice. "This is about Leticia! "What do you want with her?" Arthur demanded, his voice steady, but the pain behind it was palpable. The officer glanced back. "We know her mother," he said slowly, deliberately. "We know what she did." Leticia's breath hitched. What do you mean?" The officer took a step closer, cold determination radiating from him. "You have no idea what you're wrapped up in, do you? Your mother was involved in something dark, something we've been tracking for years. She left a trail, and you're the missing piece." "No!" Leticia shouted, voice breaking. "You're wrong. My mother, she wouldn't." "But it's true," he pressed, eyes narrowing. "You have no idea who you are. You're the daughter of a criminal!" The room spun. Leticia's world shattered. The walls felt like they were closing in. The whispers that had haunted her were now roaring, transforming into an unbearable cacophony. "Leticia!" Arthur exclaimed, his voice filled with concern, stepping closer as her world crumbled. "Look at me. You're not like her. You're different." But then, in that very moment of panic, something erupted from the shadows. Marcus lunged forward, his grin more vicious than ever. "Oh, this is rich," he sneered. "Looks like the beggar is really the princess. You should have never come here." Leticia's heart pounded, every nerve firing with fear. It felt like the ground beneath her fracturing. "Enough!" Arthur roared, voice cracking with ferocity. But the tension was unrelenting, the clock ticking away at their sanity. "Leticia!" Marcus taunted, his eyes alight with malice. "Why don't you tell them the truth about your mother? Maybe you'll all find out how deep this rabbit hole goes." Shock blasted through her chest. All eyes were on her, a fragile spark of hope collapsing under the weight of revelation. Suddenly, without warning, the lights in the mansion flickered ominously and went out, plunging them into darkness. Chaos erupted as shouts filled the air, confusion spreading like wildfire. Leticia felt herself jostled, pushed back. Then a gunshot rang out, sharp and clear, followed by a scream that echoed through the halls. Everything froze. Leticia's heart stopped. She felt time stretch, the world around her receding into a blur. "Get down!" Arthur shouted, throwing himself over Leticia just as another shot rang out. It felt like the earth had split, sending shockwaves through her. She gasped, the air thick with dread. In the confusion, a figure darted through the darkness, moving faster than anyone could track. "Leticia, you have to come with me!" It was her mother's voice. "Leticia, I'm here!" Her heart raced. She hadn't heard that voice since she was a child. "Mom?" The sound felt as raw and real as thunder. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing her mother standing in the doorway. She looked different, worn and weary, but undeniably her. The room gasped in unison, shock slapping them all like a frigid wind. "Mom!" Leticia cried, tears brimming in her eyes. But as she stepped forward, confusion creased her mother's brow. "Leticia, don't!" she shouted, just as Marcus lunged forward. A split moment, then chaos erupted again, and the world spun out of control. Leticia's mother turned in a panic, fear etching her features as she shouted, "You were never supposed to find out! Not like this!" The room burst into confusion, all eyes darting between them, the weight of the truth crushing down. Had everything she believed been a lie? Who was her mother really? "Why did you leave me?" Leticia shouted, emotions roaring to the surface, breaking the fragile silence. And then, like the sun finally breaking through heavy clouds, her mother lowered her voice, trembling with emotion. Because I had to protect you from the truth and from him. With that, she pointed at Arthur. The air sucked out of the room, full of disbelief. Leticia's heartbeat thundered in her ears. What? No! Your father who you think he is, her mother declared. He isn't even your father. The truth struck like a lightning bolt, leaving no time to process. What do you mean? Leticia stammered, confusion warping her fragile reality. It was all a lie, Leticia. He was sent to watch over you, to keep you from learning the truth that we tried to bury. Gasps echoed around the room as the officer shifted, muttering. Arthur's face paled, rage and sorrow mingling in his eyes. You can't be serious, he breathed, barely audible, almost pleading. But even as the words lingered in the air, a pulse of adrenaline surged in Leticia's veins. She felt strong emotions churning, betrayal, fear, confusion. The world she thought she knew cracked open, revealing shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. I don't know who to believe, she whispered, voice trembling. Leticia, Arthur urged, I would never betray you. I love you. But love felt like words choked in a throat. What's true? Who am I then? Just then, a loud crash erupted from the hallway, drawing everyone's attention. The door burst open once more, and in rushed a group of armed figures, shouting commands. Get on the ground! Their voices thundered, and chaos swallowed the room whole again. The air smelled of panic and fear as they grabbed hold of her mother, wrenching her away from Leticia. No, Mom! Leticia screamed, reaching desperately. But it was too late. The world spun, and reality twisted as the last thing she saw was her mother, eyes wide with terror, calling her name just as they dragged her away. Leticia stood frozen, heart racing, mind churning. The truth wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing tighter. The room felt ghostly, shadows swirling, relationships warped. In that moment, everything shifted like sand beneath her feet. Who was she really? And what had she stepped into? As confusion wrapped around her, the only thing she knew for certain was that chaos had only just begun. Leticia stood frozen, her heart pounding, eyes wide as her mother was dragged away. Panic coursed through her veins, a mixture of fear and disbelief. The chaos swirled around her like a tornado, voices shouting, bodies moving. Arthur's fierce protectiveness brought a fleeting sense of safety, but it hung by a thread. Leticia, we need to move, he urged, his voice tight with urgency. But she couldn't tear her gaze away from her mother, confusion knitting her brows together. Everything she thought she knew felt like sand slipping through her fingers. Just then, a loud bang reverberated from the hallway, pulling her attention back. Down, an officer barked, and everyone hit the floor. Leticia's breath caught as they were suddenly enfolded in chaos. The lights flickered again. Shadows danced erratically across the walls, masking the fear in her heart. What's happening? Leticia cried, feeling the weight of the world crushing down. She clutched Arthur's hand tightly, grounding herself in the chaos. The world felt surreal. Then, a flash of light exploded in the corridor as another figure appeared, a tall man clad in a dark coat, face partially hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He stepped into the room, commanding attention with an air of authority that seemed to draw everyone in like moths to a flame. "That's him!" the officer shouted. eyes wide with shock. "That's the man we've been looking for!" Leticia squinted, trying to see through the confusion. The man raised his hands, palms outward, his demeanor calm. "Hold on! I'm not here to cause trouble," he said, his voice smooth, but laced with something darker, an edge of danger that sent shivers down her spine. "Who are you?" Arthur demanded, stepping forward protectively as Leticia felt fear creep back in. But before the man could answer, his gaze flickered to Leticia and held. "You don't remember me, do you?" he asked, his voice softening, almost gentle. A chill slithered down her spine. "What do you mean?" Leticia stammered, confusion swirling in her mind. The world went silent, the noise fading as he stepped closer, piercing her with his gaze. "Leticia," his voice trembled with an emotion that conflicted with the authority he had just exuded. "I'm your brother." Gasps erupted around the room, piercing the silence like arrows. Leticia reeled back, breath caught in her throat. "What?" The words felt foreign, heavy like lead. "Leticia, I've been looking for you." The man stepped closer, desperation etched on his face. "You have to trust me, please. You're in danger." No. Leticia shook her head, trying to comprehend this utterly shocking revelation. "That's not possible. I don't understand." Before he could respond, the officer moved in, gun trained on him. "Back off! This isn't how this works!" But the brother's voice cut through the tension. "Listen! Our mother is in trouble. She didn't leave you to protect herself. She left to protect you." Leticia felt her world spin as everything crashed down around her. "Protect me from what?" she whispered, heart racing, eyes wide, desperation clawing at her. The man's gaze flickered to Marcus, who smirked from the shadows, seeming to revel in the chaos unfolding. "From people like him," he spat, eyes narrowing, a cruel twist of fate. "He's not who you think he is. He's the reason you're here." The room fell into a suffocating silence, a truth twisted like a knife, slicing through the fabric of Leticia's world. Who was she? Who were these people? The pain in her chest grew, threatening to drown her as clarity slipped from her grasp like water through her fingers. "Leticia, I'm your brother. We have to get out of here," he pleaded again, desperation etched on every feature. But everything felt alien, the world around her spinning. "You can't be real," she whispered, shock and confusion spiraling within her. I don't even know who I can trust. Are you just telling me what I want to hear?" The brother stepped forward again, sincerity shining in his eyes. "No, I swear, I've come too far to let you go. Please." And just then, a powerful explosion shook the house, rattling the windows and sending everyone stumbling to the ground. "Run!" Arthur shouted, grabbing Leticia, pulling her close. But she was frozen in place, the world splintering like broken glass. The brother's eyes bored into hers, desperation clinging to his every word. "Follow the truth, Leticia. It's the only thing that can save you." Yet in that moment of chaos, Leticia felt a flicker of hope and fear intertwine. Not knowing what lay ahead, but knowing one thing for sure: her life would never be the same again. Leticia stood, her heart pounding, eyes wide with confusion, as her brother's revelations sank in like a stone. Arthur's protective grip tightened around her, a mix of anger and disbelief etched on his face. The chaos of the room pulsed with tension, the air thick with uncertainty. "That can't be true," Arthur shouted, shaking his head, his voice rising. "You're lying! She's not—" But the brother's stare held an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "You need to listen. They're coming for you, Leticia. We can't stay here." The tension crackled like static, but the commotion outside grew louder, footsteps reverberating through the hallway. Leticia felt a knot form in her stomach as they seemed to close in on them, like wolves hunting their prey. The officers shouted commands, their voices a sharp contrast to the desperation swirling in her heart. "Get down!" someone yelled. But even in the chaos, Leticia remained frozen, fear rooting her to the spot. Then an explosion shattered the tension. Glass exploding outward, creating a shower of sparkles and debris. With a deafening roar, the front door burst open, and a group of masked figures stormed in, weapons raised. "Get out! Everyone! Down!" Their voices were harsh, filled with authority and malice. Panic surged through Leticia as she grabbed Arthur, her fingers trembling around his wrist. "What's happening? What do they want?" But before Arthur could respond, the brother moved in front of her, shielding her with his body. "They're not here for me. They want you. You have to trust me." The masked figures surged forward, the chaos erupting into a frenzy. Arthur pushed Leticia behind him, fists clenched, ready to defend her. "I won't let them hurt you," he growled, eyes matched against the menacing intruders. "Step back, all of you," one of the masked men shouted, advancing with a growl like a predator cornering its prey. Leticia's breath hitched, her heart racing. In one swift movement, the brother lunged, grabbing the nearest intruder by the arm. "No, you can't take her!" But it escalated quickly. In a split second, it turned into a violent clash. Fists flew, and gunshots echoed sharply against the walls like thunder. "Leticia, run!" Arthur shouted, but she was paralyzed by fear, her thoughts racing. Then, just as chaos reached its peak, a figure lunged through the doorway behind the masked men. It was her mother, her expression frantic and frantic, streaming into the room like a ray of hope in the storm. "Leticia!" she screamed, and in that moment, everything went still. But there was something off. There was a glint in her mother's eyes, a spark of something darker lurking beneath the surface. It sent chills down Leticia's spine. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Leticia's voice trembled, the very ground beneath her shifting. "Stop! You can't trust her!" the brother yelled, suddenly tense as a bowstring. But her mother pushed forward, urgency driving her movements. "I'm only here to protect you!" she cried. But Leticia felt a sting of uncertainty. A masked figure turned, raising his weapon toward her mother. "You shouldn't have come back. Now you'll have to pay the price." "No!" Leticia shouted, taking a step forward. Time seemed to stretch as a shot echoed through the room, a sharp crack that shattered everything. "Mom!" Leticia screamed, voice breaking, heart lodged in her throat. The scene exploded like a firework. Body slumped to the floor, a moment frozen in horror. Everything shifted, world tilting on its axis. Leticia's entire universe crumbled in that heartbeat. "No," she wailed, but the grip of reality crushed down like an iron fist. As the smoke settled, she realized her mother wasn't dead. I had to do it, her brother whispered, eyes glistening with tears, mouth set firm. It's the only way to stop her. What? Leticia's voice was barely a whisper, confusion flooding her mind. What do you mean? But the truth hung heavily in the air, a toxic cloud waiting to seep under her skin. Everything she thought she knew warped and twisted. Was her mother the villain? With every moment that passed, a new terror bubbled to the surface, leaving questions spinning in a maelstrom. And just when she thought she had the answers, the world lurched again. In that maelstrom of chaos, nothing was as it seemed. Relationships breaking apart like brittle glass. The question burned inside her, hot and wild. Who was she really? And who could she trust? As she looked around, everything felt shattered, leaving her stranded in the aftermath of upheaval. Leticia's heart felt like a wild drum in her chest, beating faster as she stood in the middle of the chaos. Her brother, the man she never knew existed, stood before her, pleading with those fierce eyes to trust him. Arthur glared at him, fists clenched, an unyielding guardian. "Leticia, get away from him!" Arthur shouted, his voice echoing against the debris of their shattered world. The masked intruders surged forward, chaos erupting. It felt like a dark storm closing in, and Leticia's fists trembled as... Everyone, just stop! The room hushed, the air thick with tension. All eyes darted between her and her brother. "He's telling the truth!" Her mother's voice broke through, her eyes wide with fear. "I had to protect you, and it's all connected. They're after you because of..." "Enough!" A masked figure barked, and the shout broke the moment. It jolted Leticia back into action. "Leticia!" her brother yelled, his desperation palpable. "We have to leave, now!" The floor shook as another explosion reverberated close by, sending dust spiraling through the air. The walls creaked ominously, a reminder that the house was crumbling around them. Adrenaline surged through Leticia, pushing away the icy grip of fear. In a split second, instincts kicked in. "Run!" she yelled, grabbing Arthur's hand, pulling him along. The brother followed, urgency coating every step as they plunged into the hallway. The sirens wailed outside, a cacophony that mixed with the shouts inside the crumbling mansion. Leticia felt the weight of the world crashing down, each second poised on the edge of turmoil and uncertainty. "Where do we go?" she cried, rounding a corner, heart racing. The walls seemed to pulse, shadows merging into monstrous shapes. "What do I do?" "Trust me," her brother urged, his voice steady despite their surroundings. "I know a way out. We can escape this." But the explosive echoes reverberated in Leticia's mind, dragging past fears to the surface. What if it's a trap? What if you're lying like everyone else? Do you really think I'd risk my life if I didn't care? He met her eyes, sincerity swimming within their depths. In that moment, doubt melted under the warmth of trust. She nodded, heart racing. They rushed toward a stairwell leading to the basement, where shadows hung heavy. But the flickering light revealed a glimmer of hope. "Let's go!" Arthur shouted, pushing ahead, and with each step, Leticia felt courage blossom inside her. Then they burst through an old door, emerging into the dimly lit basement. The walls were bare, cold concrete surrounding them like a fortress. "Here," her brother gestured to a narrow window. "Help me lift this." With a collective heave, they raised the window, adrenaline flowing through their veins. go. Leticia urged her brother up first, then turned to Arthur, panic bubbling in her chest. Get out before they come! Not without you, he insisted, voice firm. We don't have time, she cried, urgency spilling over into her words. You have to trust me. I'll follow. A sudden blast from outside shattered the moment. A warning shot fired through the chaos. Fear surged as Arthur looked back, eyes fierce. You'll be safe, I promise. With a final push, he climbed through. And her brother followed quickly. Just as Leticia turned, a loud crash echoed behind her. Go! She shouted one last time, adrenaline spiking. She squeezed through the window, freedom a breath away, but the weight of uncertainty lingered like a shroud. Stepping into the moonlight, she felt the chill of the night air wrap around her like a comforting blanket. But the shadows were still there, watching and waiting. As they sprinted away from the burning ruin of the mansion, Leticia glanced back, heart heavy. What will happen to us? Her brother stopped, breathing hard. We'll figure it out, together. But just as they turned, the ground shook beneath them. They stumbled, hearts frozen in terror. Leticia, run! Arthur lunged forward, determination blazing in his eyes. But the shadows shifted, figures emerging from the darkness. They were far from safe. A sinister smile crept across Marcus's face as he stood at the edge of the street, triumphant. Did you think you could escape so easily? He taunted, the gleam in his eyes cutting like glass. Heart racing, Leticia felt the weight of the world settle back onto her shoulders. The truth was still out there, a tangled web of betrayal and secrets. But deep down, she knew one thing. They were in this together, and she would find the strength to fight. As they gripped each other's hands tighter, determination burned in their chests. The night was long, and the path was uncertain. But in that brief moment, surrounded by the storm, they were ready to face whatever came next. And now, my friends, this is your moment. You must subscribe to the channel now to avoid missing out on future exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about pho.